What's going on, Betspert people? How are we doing today? Me, Byron, Lindeque, aka the Model Maniac, back at you for the first Betsperts Golf DFS Show of the 2023 year. We've punted Ron, my best buddy, to the moon. He ain't ever coming back again. I'm just kidding. He'll be back soon. And in his beautiful seat, we've got another good friend of mine, Ryan Noonan. How you doing, my buddy?
Good. Happy to fill in for Ron. They are very big shoes to fill, and I'm going to do my best to. There's plenty of room for me to get in and slide in here. I can't walk around in them because I'd be tripping all over myself. But Ron will be back. We're going to use a lot of his data and expertise still. You just don't have to see his pretty face. You get mine instead. So, yeah, excited to unpack DFS with you. It's been a few months, but I obviously love chopping it up with you, and I've been a fan on the sidelines watching you and Ron all season.
Yeah, no, it's been a great time. I'm sad Ron's not here to join us, but I think you'll be just fine in his place. Granted, the shoes are rather big. I think we might agree on a few more things than Ron and I typically do, which I think I'm looking forward to as well, because him and I tend to never agree on anything. We are just polar opposites, which makes us, I guess, a great duo. So that is what it is. So American Express, we're playing 3 different golf courses. I think by now it's a Wednesday. You should know all of the stuff that's going on. 3 courses. Amateurs involved, 3 rounds before the cut, the whole shebang. Ryan, what's kind of your vibe for the DFS slate this week? What are you looking to approach it with? Are there certain types of skill sets you're looking to eye out? Like, what's your general feel for the week?
There are some commonalities between the 3 courses, which I do think are interesting, and I think helps make it handicapping it a little bit easier because, again, we are flying blind, as most people know, here on 2 of the courses in terms of strokes gain data. So the live data and then anything historic is difficult because we don't have that. But again, we just have similar layouts where we have smaller, 7,200 yard, courses, par 5s reachable to anyone. We have the spots where last week too, where we had, shorter golf course, and you have a Pete Dye track. And often Pete Dye tracks are known for positional golf courses. That's why we saw Siwoo do well last week. We know Siwoo plays well on Pete Dye tracks. This doesn't have that element. It's just short, right? There is no positional elements. You can just be short and still make it. The rough is not very penal because, again, it's really hard to grow that up at this time of year. So you can get around here and spray it a little bit. It is the one that's obviously famously known as a putting contest from John Rahm last year. And I don't know, I think I'm weighing putting a little bit more than I typically do. Yeah. And I'm also, I think, and Andy and I were talking about this on the betting show here on the Betsperts Golf channel. Go ahead and look at that from yesterday if you haven't done so. But I'm also, I don't know, I find myself weighing course history a little bit more early in the season too. And part of that is, I think it's been the tracks that we're on, right? Kapalua, I think, has been historically something that you kind of want to get a feel for early on. I think you get the same at Sony because it is a positional thing. And then, as you mentioned, the elements that we have here that are unique, you're dealing with 6-hour rounds with amateurs, right? And that's not for everyone. So having someone that's been here and shown, first of all, that you come here every year, you like it enough that you want to keep coming back to it, and that you've had a little bit of success means that you can still play your game without getting sidelined by, hitting your shot and then the clunker, chip before you get to shoot again. That's not for everyone, right? Yeah. And that's the other piece too. Because it's easier, we do have these we're out there. You can't tuck a pin in the corner. I need you to put a pin in the middle of the green. That's not a lot of what these guys see. So you got to go low. So that's kind of another reason why I know historically it makes the most sense. Putting of all the strokes gain metrics is the most noisy, but I think especially when you get to the tails of things, especially on the good side here, there's something to that. If you've shown that you are consistently above field average in putting, you should probably pay attention to it on a week that birdies are going to be vital. So especially in DFS where we need birdie streaks and we need to run them together, I'm willing to take on a little bit more risk with guys that can, spray it around a little bit.
I absolutely agree. And I think I'm really keying in on that 5. I don't even know. I know Ron mentioned that it's Poetriv, but there's hardly any Poetriv putting stats available. So I'm just running baseline putting stats across the board. Any surface, give me all of them. Let's roll. So I'm riding 5 to 15 feet, that's going to be my magic range that I like. I think, you can see a big distinguishing factor between the very best putters and the not. And that will be what I'm using for putting this week for sure. And then you've got these, I wanted to mention something else that I can't quite remember now, but it was something to do with these different courses and having course history. Yes. So I think I'm going to be very aggressive against people that have very good course history that aren't like elite. It's particularly in DFS. I'm betting on a guy on course history for like a T20 or something like a Tom Hoagie. But I think a lot of people are clicking Tom Hoagie because he's played well here before, which you can't disagree. But it's going to provide a lot of ownership. But if you look at like Data Golf's correlations to success at this venue, course history's ass. So it's like, I don't think I'm going to be leaning on that much, although I have been early in the season, like you've mentioned. So that's kind of my vibe I'm going with, and we'll see how it goes.
That makes sense though too when you're referencing the Data Golf thing, because again, we don't have any relevant stats for two of them. So we're really dealing with course history off of just the stadium course.
One round a year.
Yeah, right. So if you're not like, that's the thing too with like La Quinta and Nicholas, La Quinta in particular, if you're not going like nuclear.
Yeah.
But you're leaving massive strokes out there for some, like we're going to have, and we'll get to that. I'm sure we'll touch base maybe a little bit at the end on some showdown strategy, but obviously looking at where we're stacking and doing those things in terms of where your guys are at makes a lot of sense. But yeah, man, if you're like hanging out in like the upper 60s on La Quinta, you're just toast. You're
losing. I think it's almost 6 or 7 strokes under par for like the top 5 guys over the last little while I checked out. So yeah, it's going to be a wild one. And the volatility is I'm all about embracing difference and volatility usually. And I think even more so this week, I'm going to be chasing low owned guys, blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of just the vibe for me. And we've got some studs in the field, which makes it kind of interesting. I think the official World Golf ranking total points from last year to this year is like doubled, which is really interesting. So that's also another element that I now remembering I want to mention is the course history thing is we've got way better players here now, which changes the course history because typically this has been a poo-poo event. So your course history can be pretty good if you're a middle of the tier range guy. Now we've got all these big guys that course history could be watered down a little bit. So that's my take.
Yeah, I think it's a good take. And I would love to give credit to who I saw say it. And I think it was actually really sharp because I do agree. Like Andy and I talked about that on the betting show is how do we change, right? We've seen, I think, 4 of the last 5 here from a betting standpoint, 1 at 150 or longer. And we do have a better field. A lot of the guys, though, that I think have just raised themselves in the world golf rankings because a lot of these guys have been coming here. At least, some of the younger guys, maybe not a long time, but like, Cantley, who is absolutely fine playing 6 hours. He has been coming here for a while. John Rahm, who will bemoan the setup and all those things, continues to come here. Zalatoris came last year. That's not something that he's kind of new on tour. So some of these, Sammy Burns has been here, but like Sam Burns has kind of ascended in terms of world golf ranking. So I think there is something to that, but I also think there are some of the top tier guys are just better in terms of where they've been in the years past. So I definitely think it's probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, no, I agree. And speaking of the top tier guys, let's get into it now. We got John Rahm sitting at 10-8, Scotty Scheffler 10-5, Tony Finau 10-2, Patrick Cantley 10-1, and Xander at 10. Let's just kind of basically scratch Xander off. I don't know. Are you going to be doing anything with Xander this week, Ryan?
No, it's just it's the opportunity cost at the top too, right? Like he's obviously good enough to play because he wouldn't be here, but like there's enough to be like, hey, I strained something or I wanted to get a little bit in and get ready because I'm sure next week going home to Torrey Pines is important for him. So maybe he wants to get a little bit more in because he didn't play much, at the opener. So. I think it's just there's so much above him and below him. That's really good. So I'm sure just game theory, GPP bro style, you're dealing with probably half to even more ownership. I'm sure he probably comes in tops 10%, probably lower. Yeah, so I get obviously why people would be open to clicking him. I just think that there's too much opportunity cost at the top tier.
Yeah. And especially like we said, 6-hour rounds. If you've got a niggly back, you're going to be on your feet for 6 hours. It's not like a 4-hour round that you can kind of quickly get around. So
good point.
I'm gonna tell you where I like at the top here, and I'm a full fade on Jon Rahm again. It's burnt me once or twice, but I think he's going to be one of the highest owned guys in the field. My philosophy for that is the Rahm wedge watch. I don't think his wedges are going to be sufficient at this venue, although the rest of his game is immaculate. I mean, the putting has been through the roof, dude. And like he lost strokes on approach at the Century, which is where a lot of wedges, you could see like every wedge he had he lost fractions of a stroke on that approach. And he was making all those birdie putts from 35 feet. So I'm out, like if he's going to keep doing that, then he's going to beat me at 33%. But if he starts cooling off with the putter for 1 or 2 rounds, I don't think his irons and approach play from inside like 150 is going to be good enough this week. So I'm a fade on him.
Yeah, I think it's probably sharp because you're again naturally contrarian to the fields, because I think he's going to be a very popular click up top. He would probably be my preferred click in this tier. You could sell me on a couple of other guys here, but I'm probably skipping this range in general. I'm typically a 3 max guy anyway, so like I'm not worried about 150s or anything like that. So it's not hard for me to have to make some of these stands anyway. And I just love balanced builds this week. We'll get there. I really want to stay out of the 6s. And if I can avoid, it makes it easier to do if I'm not really touching anyone that's 10K or above. So because I do think that, look, Rahm's won 3 of the last 5. Like that's kind of wild when considering that like he's coming off of a down year, and now he's pissed that he's not world number 1. And a mad Rahm is not someone that I want to be on the opposite side of. But like in terms of DFS, playing it into 30% in tournaments in 3 max or single entry stuff just doesn't make sense. So I think he's the best. I think it makes sense that he's the top dog here, but I think that you're probably right to full fade.
Yeah. I mean, I might be right. I might be wrong. Hopefully I'm right.
Just theory wise, right? Yeah. I mean, we can't see the outcome from Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah. And you mentioned you don't want to flirt too much with the 6K range. I've also got another take on that, because you got 3 rounds of golf before the cut. So if your guy does land up missing the cut, which is most likely going to be someone in the 6K range anyway, the majority of the 6K range are going to miss the cut. Yeah. They're only missing 1 round's worth of points, adding to your DFS total for your lineup. So for me, I'm a little more, okay dealing with 6K guys. And that for me is why I'm going to be playing a bit of Scotty Scheffler this week at 10.5. I think he ranks out the best for me. He's going to be, of the lower owned guys in this top 4 here, excluding Xander. We're just waiting on this putter to bounce back, man. Everything else is just right there, world-class stuff, and the putter's just not performing. Maybe with a few jabronis walking around on the greens, he just gets it dialed in. Sees a few lines, because that's also the thing. You get to see all these putting lines from these guys that are outside of you, especially Scotty's approach play is so good. None of the other putts are going to be inside of him. So he's going to see all of these balls rolling past him and get some good lines. So that's kind of my vibe on him. I really like him. Tony Finau is also a great, option, but I think I'm just going to roll with Scotty, and that's it. I'm not going to get too hectic up top here. So,
I don't mind, just from a theory, like the 6s for me more so, and we'll get there, is I love the low 7s. So like, I think I'm comfortable actually just hanging in there, because you're going to have to get some of those guys anyway, versus just a complete flat build in terms of, being balanced. So for me, it's just, I think there's actual winners in the low 7s, guys that are going to actually be in contention here, versus, the 6s are just a little rough this week for me. But I think you make a great point. I think 54 hole cut does help you swallow something down there a little bit easier, because you're really, again, the opportunity cost is just the one round. Yeah. Right. If he's sinks you.
Yeah, exactly. If you go with a punt at 6K flat, you can really get real heavy at the top. So that's kind of an interesting concept if you want to approach it that way. So 9K range, we've got all sorts of people in here. We've got Sung Jae, Willie Z, Tom Kim, Sam Burns, Brian Harmon, Siwoo Kim, Cameron Young, and Aaron Wise to round out the bottom of the 9K range. It's going to be a fun range. I think you can get some really good value in this area. There's some guys that I think are kind of mispriced slightly. I think you could argue either person could be in some 10Ks, some people not, like Xander being 10K and, blah, blah, blah. So I'm kind of really liking Tom Kim in this range again. I'm super high on him. Hopefully a lot of people are scared of a horrific putting outing in Sony and kind of get off him a little bit, and he just bounces back. This guy's a tiny little 20-year-old that doesn't give two shits. He's just like a really vigilant dude, and he's going to be out there chewing at the bit to try and win an event that's got some big names in it. He's shown he can do it at the President's Cup, on a big stage. I'm not concerned about a course overwhelming him ever until we actually really see it happen, not on the greens. And I like Tom Kim in this range. And then right underneath him is Sam Burns, who's going to be my guy that's going to be my contrarian pivot kind of situation. I don't think a lot of people are going to be on him. His recent form's kind of terrible at the moment, but this golf course suits his general play. Like if he bounces back to the Sam Burns that has won golf tournaments, he's going to win this tournament. Like putting, wedges, hitting the ball a million miles, right? That's what Sam Burns does.
Love Sam Burns. Probably just a guy that I bet too often. And I love him here for that same reason, because again, you're running any sort of model, looking at anything with recent form. He's been pretty bad. He's been below, the other guys, in this price tier, below his baseline performance over the last year and a half or so. And yeah, he came up, and it was a guy that I hammered even before he kind of broke out, because like he can hit it a mile and he can putt, right? So if we could piece some of the other stuff together, and he finally did, he becomes a top tier talent. So yeah, he's a guy that I think people are going to be reluctant, because there's, again, so many viable names in this range too. And I think Tom Kim is also a great look. People will probably want to back off. He was mega chalk last week as, the belle of the ball at that event, and very much did not deliver for people. And, that's a huge piece of DFS is just like, well, no, he's gone to me. I'm going to go somewhere else, because that has been basically his MO a little bit, right? We know that the fairways and wedges are immaculate.
Yeah.
We've seen spike putting weeks like we saw at the Wyndham, and he just nukes the field. And we don't even need that, really. If he can be that good, if we can just get kind of to field average or so putting, he's going to contend. Yeah, I think he's a great look. The other one that I really like here, I love Sanjay. Sanjay is also, I don't think, going to be very popular. He's been popular the last couple of weeks. Excuse me, coming off of a miscut as well. So he kind of hurt some feelings too. And I think that Sanjay has been really good. Ron put out a tweet looking at easy scoring conditions and splits versus easy versus non-easy. And Sanjay obviously is an above average golfer. He's good on non-easy courses as well, but he's been taking advantage historically of fairly easy layouts. So yeah, I think Sanjay is going to be a name that people often overlook this week, because it's, people are going to go down to Cam Young, and not Cam Smith. People want to jam in Cam Young at 9,100. So I'm sure you see a lot of builds that you pick your top tier guy, or you go Cam Young, and then you go from there. So just hanging out anywhere in the middle there, I think, is going to be a little bit unique.
Yeah, and Cam Young is a smash play, in my opinion, but he's obviously going to be super popular. The guy's he can overpower any golf course. The birdies come hot and heavy, but he's one of the worst putters in this field from inside 5 feet. It's just, he's absolutely gone rogue on the putting. Like, he's got the bit of the yips there, and it's weird. So it's weird to see, but, I think I won't be playing him just based off the ownership as well. So, yeah. So is there anyone else in this range? I think, there's going to be some popular. Siwoo Kim, I don't know what his ownership's looking like in the mid-teens after a win. We've seen Ron tell us that after a good performance, Siwoo is just not available. There's fumes of all sorts of different flavored liquids coming out of his mouth still, probably on a Thursday morning. And understandably so. The guy goes hard, he's a very emotional player. So I'm out of him. I've actually got a Andrew Putnam matchup against Siwoo, because I just think, Siwoo's not going to show up this week. Anyone else in the 9K range? I don't even know who my favorite play was. I don't even know if I got to it, but I think it was Sam Burns, right? Tom Kim. Okay, yeah,
Tom
cool.
Kim.
We mentioned it. Sweet.
Yeah.
Cool. So 8K range. Let's go rolling down here. We got, Aaron Wise. I'm in on Aaron Wise as well. Sorry, before we get to the 8Ks. He's also going to be one of the less popular guys in this range. I don't know why. Everything about his game, off the tee, approach, birdie or better, par 5 scoring, all top 12 in this field.
So this is a weak spot for me, right?
Yes. Talk to me, Ryan.
I am going to play him in DFS. I didn't bet him, so I have to have some sort of hedge on benefiting from a good Aaron Wise week.
An emotional hedge, yes.
That way, I will add him live just so that I do so and have the ticket, which will be painful because I think he's in a nice bettable range. I just like some of the other guys in the pricing around him a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, overall, this has been kind of the thing is the putting is better than people thought or think it was early in the year. It's been trending up. Ball striking is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'll continue to be long on Aaron Wise. So if he's going to be low owned on a week where I didn't bet him, I need to get a little bit of piece on Aaron Wise at 9K. I'll definitely have him in the lineup.
Perfect. I think he's going to be super low owned. I think he's super low priced for his skill set. So let's go, dude. I think
people are going to click Cam Young right above him all the time. Like, I mean, just you're hand building, and that's just going to be very, very easy to do.
And then underneath him, it's Taylor Montgomery and Cam Davis, who are like probably going to be two of the most popular guys in this 8K range over here, not named Tom Hoagie. So the 8K range is also loaded with guys that you have some potential, not nearly as the elite caliber players that we've just mentioned, but Andrew Putnam finished T4, I think, last week. So Sahith Theegala, we've seen him do some stuff. We've got KH Lee, Adam Hadwin, Wyndham Clark, and Taylor Pendrith and JT Poston rounding out the bottom, yeah. I'm kind of in on KH Lee this week a lot, actually. I was putting together my write-up for my outrights on a Tom Kim piece, and I was like, Tom Kim is fourth in ball striking behind Tony Finau, someone else, and KH Lee, who's third in my stuff here. And the guy's just out here just waxing it. So it's going to be really interesting to see if he can do that around this course. And when he gets hot, he gets hot. He's won the AT&T Byron Nelson. I think you can kind of almost throw some similar vibes out in the playing style and the field quality and scoring conditions,
Yep.
So KH Lee for me is gonna be a perfect play underneath Tom Hoagie there, who's going to be mega chalk, and I don't think Tom should be anywhere near the $8,400 price tag. But KH Lee is my guy in this range. I kind of like him, and Sahith Theegala will be another one that I kind of sprinkle in there as like one of those, what the hell are we even going to get from him this week type plays. So yeah, what's cooking in the 8K range for you, yeah, buddy?
So this is like my entire betting card.
Okay.
I skipped, the big guys this week. I was able to get 66 on Cam Davis. I'm in on Taylor Montgomery. I bet Andrew Putnam and I bet Tom Hoagie. Like these are my nice. Like four main outrights, all in this tier. The problem is that I'm not alone in thinking that they are good plays and set up well for this spot. The Taylor Montgomery thing is interesting to me. I'll start with him because like winning golf tournaments is really hard. We've seen this, Finau struggled, Zalatoris struggled for long stretches where they were constantly in contention. And Taylor Montgomery is still fairly new on the tour. We spent a lot of time last year as well on the Corn Ferry, but he is always in the mix. And it's nuts. He's made the cut in 20 of his past 24 starts between the two tours. He's finished T15 in 19 of those 20 occasions. That's 79% of his starts. He is just always there. And he's not typically, I'm guessing someone that you don't typically land on as far as like profile, because when you look at it, it's kind of wedges or, his approach game is lagging behind a little bit. But when you're looking at baseline putting that is this good, this stable for this long, over the last 12 months on tour, he is 0.31 strokes above number 2, Harry Hall. The difference between Harry Hall and number 10 is the same difference. He is a statistical outlier in terms of putting, and he can hit it a mile. So because we don't have to worry about him being punished for spraying a little bit, and these greens are, we've seen lots of talk about these being pure putting surfaces right now. Like, give this guy a challenge. You're going to have easy pins, which makes it easier for his actual weakness in his game.
Sure.
And then put him in position to roll a bunch in. Like, I don't know. Like, I know it's into ownership, but man, if I need birdies this week, this guy is going to give us birdies. So I'm willing to eat a little chalk on Taylor Montgomery.
Yeah, and it's not going to be like massive chalk because he's right there with some Cameron Youngs and Cam Davises, so it's totally okay. If you're gonna have to eat a little bit of chalk at some point throughout your clicking process. But
yeah, I'm gonna eat it with Cam Davis too, Byron. That's the problem.
You're gonna eat some Cam Davis chalk as well.
I mean, look, Cam Davis is. He's a guy that I thought coming up would be someone that would profile to fit better on different courses, longer courses. But when you look at where he's had success, it's been kind of shorter to medium stuff. I didn't expect him to contend at Harbour Town. Again, Pete Dye track, more positional than what we're going to have at the stadium course, but that's kind of been where he's played really well. He's won at the Rocket Mortgage, where you have to go nuclear, right? You got to get into like the high teens or 20. So we know that he's set up there and has played really well at this event. A couple of strong finishes, including a third. So we know that he's, okay with the setup, and it played pretty nicely the last couple of times we've seen him out. So I'm kind of just a guy that I want to be long on for the season. Just want to make sure that if there are, I think, good setups for him, I want to be, backing him in some ways. I have the outright ticket. I'm not necessarily locked into, want to get later ownership and thoughts from Ron in terms of what we see there for Cam Davis. So it might be a spot where I pivot a little bit because I do like a lot of the other guys in this range. Cagely, as you mentioned, I mentioned that I'm on Hoagie and Putnam as well. I think Hoagie will be very, very popular. So he's probably a better fade. So I have to make some smart decisions in terms of ownership, but they're just sometimes really good plays, and I feel like I can get unique elsewhere. And it's again more about cumulative ownership versus just the one guy, especially if I really, really believe that one guy is going to get me 4 solid rounds. And by betting him outright, I've kind of committed to that. I'm okay with making some choices at other spots.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I was just watching his ownership throughout the week at the Sony with Showdown. And man, it started getting a little ridiculous because everyone was chasing that ball striking and the putter just never, ever followed through once. Yep. And maybe it happens this week. So I think it's fair. It's a fair argument. The most important element of his game is going to be consistently there. And the putter, comes and goes. So, which is fine. That's exactly what you're looking for in a guy. What was he, 50-1?
I got a 66.
66-1. Yeah, that's totally okay with that kind of stuff. So, I'm also in on Tom Hoagie with you. So let's ride that train out to the max. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Adam Hadwin's also an interesting character at this venue. I think he's got some good course history at this place. But again, we got a whole bunch of guys that are going to be injecting themselves ahead of him who are much better golfers. So anyone else you want to mention in this bottom of the 8K range, Ryan?
I think JT Poston's interesting. Sets up pretty well and might not be very owned. He kind of popped for me higher. Just not a guy that I typically back very much. But again, if he seems like he's going to come in 7% or below, he might be a spot where, again, I maybe get off of a Tom Hoagie and that might be a place to go different. And I don't feel like I'm really losing that much overall like birdie equity, right? We know Poston can go low. We know the wedges can be nice. There's really not a ton that he does super well, but there's not a lot that he does poorly. So, kind of a nice solid all around game.
Yeah. And I think Ron is awesome because he messages these caddies and stuff. And the caddy of JT said he doesn't play well towards the fall. Like he's just not a fall guy. I don't know why, as the year plateaus out, he's just not there. And got a new year, new JT. So he's shown he's played some better golf. So I'm there with you too. Absolutely. Cool. 7K range, massive range. This is where you're going to make your bread and butter. And I think this is where one of the guys has to finish inside the top 5 or so to kind of really get you going up those DFS boards. I'm going to just throw out some names here that I'm kind of in the mood for. Some Keith Mitchell, some Justin Rose. Jason Day's an interesting player that's looking rather popular. And some Ricky Fowler is an interesting conversation I want to have because he's got a brand new swing coming through. He was playing some good golf. I think he had a T6 and a second in 2 of his last 4 starts.
Yeah.
And now we don't even really know what he's going to be doing when he comes back. He's got a completely new swing, new coach. I don't know. New year, new Ricky. Jake's going to kind of, what are we thinking?
I hope so. I'm going to let someone else pay to find out, though. Okay. I'll watch and I'll take my other guys that used to be good that aren't very good anymore. And you mentioned a couple of them that I tried to pitch a little bit to Andy in our betting show, and it's Justin Rose and Jason Day.
The old dogs.
So like no one wants to click them because just the back can tighten up at any point for either guy. And like they are definitely constantly on withdraw watch. So you're never surprised if all of a sudden you get a, Friday afternoon trunk slam for either of these guys, right? Just because they're not letting it up and all of a sudden it's like, I strained my neck. They're kind of at that stage of their career. But I'm encouraged from some of the swing stuff I've heard about Jason Day. Looks like it's been okay. He's played these pro-ams, these shorter courses, this California golf fairly well in his career. Justin Rose, again, the putting has been really good. I think it's worth our attention. Going to give himself a lot of birdie looks. He plays short par fours fairly well. I mean, it's not an easy click, but if no one else wants to do it, I don't mind. Because some of the other stuff in the sevens I like is more towards the bottom. So I think it is a little bit of a differentiator in terms of where the normal lineup construction is going to fall. So those guys in the top tier are interested in me. Patrick Rogers is a guy that I always have a soft spot for as well. Because again, he's like, I don't know, he's poor man Sam Burns. It just hasn't happened. Like, he can hit it a mile and the putter gets really hot, and the rest of it sometimes is just really hard to watch. But when he like puts these rounds together, sometimes you're like, damn, like that guy can like do it. Why doesn't this happen more consistently? So like, I want to back him in California because we know this is where he likes to play and historically has played well. So I don't know his course history offhand. I didn't look, but I know that just California in general this time of year is Patrick Rogers time more than any other time if there was Patrick Rogers time. So that would be a guy that in this range in the top sevens is of interest.
Yeah, no, I'm all aboard the Justin Rose train with you there. He's fourth in weighted proximity.
Two-man show, Byron. There's not a lot of people on the train with us.
Let's go, dude. I'm fine with that. This is the kind of week that I'm totally okay being on an island with someone like Justin Rose.
Yeah.
So and I want to mention some Keith Mitchell. He's also that similar type of bomb and putt, and we'll see what happens. He burnt a lot of people last week as well as one of the highest owned guys in the slate. Is everyone going to go back to him this week is another interesting situation. And then I'll just mention out the most random play is Christian Bezuidenhout had one of the worst outings I've ever seen. Like, the guy was just not available, MIA, AWOL, whatever you want to call it. He's looking like he's going to be barely owned, like 0.1% ownership on a guy that's going to be not necessarily the type of build you're looking for, but he's one of the best putters in the world too when he's rolling. And I'm okay taking a chance on a $7,700 guy that's one of the best putters in the field. So that's just, you have to play him in two lineups to get way overweight on him, and I'm totally okay with that. So I'll mention some Emiliano Grillo. Can't go without mentioning him. I think, ball struck it nicely down in Sony, missed the cut there, but he's shown he had that nice stretch of good putting until the final few events of the season, and then now he's kind of lost it again. But he can bounce back this week. I think he's going to be a play for me again, and he's just interesting. And then Patrick Rogers, I want to get back to him real quick. He's like a perfect guy that he has to almost have the tournament break perfectly for him. He can't be in contention anytime until Sunday kind of thing, right? Like, the moment he gets to the top of the leaderboard, he's allergic. And it's at the Bermuda, I think he was out of it until the Sunday and just came charging up. So he's an interesting showdown play too. I think I'll like him in certain spots. You can try and pick when the pressure's not on, play Patrick Rogers. So let's get into the bottom of this range here. We've got some Thomas Dietrich, who's going to be an interesting character. Brennan Todd is someone I like. Lee Hodges, Dean Burmester is another name I'm in the mood for. Let's round it out here with, at the bottom, I'm going to go with some Ben Griffin, and my favorite play of the 7K range is a flat $7,000, Mark Hubbard. I'm probably going to be the only person that dies on this island. I might try and convince you to join me, Ryan. Mark Hubbard, we'll start at the bottom and we go up again. He's 14th in my model because he can hit his approach shots so well, dude. His irons are actually kind of electric. He's one of the best bogey avoiders in the field, and does well in the par fives too. So he does a lot of good stuff that people don't realize. He had toe surgery in November. He was pretty much playing those last few events that skewed all his stats with a toe that he dropped his laptop on. This is after, I think, that his daughter dropped a knife into his foot. Like, this guy's just had like the craziest run of things happen to his feet. And I'm on foot watch with Mark Hubbard right now, but it is what it is. So I'm really a big fan of him. I got him at 250 to 1. He's a fun follow on Twitter. Just everything about him is just, as a fan of golf, it's tough not to play this guy. And then Ben Griffin. I've got both of Mark Hubbard and Ben Griffin for outrights. Ben Griffin's just doing his thing. Yes, let's go. He's trending, dude. He's a new guy on the block. You saw at the Bermuda, he kind of lost the cool under pressure, but he's been there now. So he can feel more comfortable when he's in the mix again. And he's been knocking on that top 10 door, finishing inside the top 20 in 33% of his 9 starts that he's had this year. So the guy's solid, man. And he's pretty popular down here, but he might be a guy I click on just because he's just good. He's good. So who are you talking about in the bottom of the 7Ks? Yeah.
So when I first ran some stuff for the week too, I also got Mark Hubbard that made the list. I'm old school too. I have pen and paper and I write down guys that I want to look at, and I kind of use that as a ledger. I can go back and plug it in. So I'm old, so I still write things down. And then when I looked into Mark Hubbard a little bit too, and I was like, ooh, some of this makes me a little bit nervous. But you mentioned, I think, the stuff that we want to do well here, he does typically do really well.
Yeah.
So I think that matters. You make a good case that there's been some off the course stuff that maybe has been, a little bit of indicator of why these things have happened. So yeah. I get back on the Mark Hubbard train again. Like I'm looking for guys like that I think your point around the Saturday cut makes a ton of sense, but I feel like there's a bunch of guys right in this range that, I don't know, we have outright tickets on Ben Martin and some other guys that I think make a lot of sense that actually really think that they can be in the mix here on Sunday a little bit versus I feel like best case scenario for the majority of the 6s. I'm just maybe hoping that maybe you get through and maybe you get me some decent rounds. And I just think that there's a pretty severe, drop off in terms of actual top 10, top 20 equity, more so than even win equity in terms of the way that the pricing breaks down. So the Ben Griffin stuff, I couldn't believe it. So I do this on Sunday night, and I won't say it the way I said it on the betting show, because I said 3 different times I went to bed with guys in mind. That was not the right terminology.
Okay.
I need to watch my phrasing. But I do a little bit of work on Sunday evening so that I have golfers in mind that I would like to bet on when the betting board comes out on Monday morning, I think is the proper way to say that. And when I was looking at numbers, I was like, what am I doing that has Ben Griffin in the top 5? And then I changed the sample size. And I'm like, well, now he's top 3. And then I push it way back, and I don't get enough rounds to qualify. But he's still in the top 10. The rest of the top 10 looks normal. Byron, it's Rahm and Scotty and Xander and all the guys we talked about. And then it's Ben Griffin. And I don't know. It's terrific swing season. T3 at Bermuda, which is really nice. We saw him last week at the Sony. T12 in contention. The Corn Ferry, again, where he's been. We've seen these guys. Mm-hmm. It's not unprecedented for these guys to come from dominating and being really on the top of the leaderboard consistently on the Corn Ferry and then find their way on the PGA Tour pretty quickly. And I think Ben Griffin might be one of these guys. It's a little early, but 10 top 20 finishes in 24 starts. That's a guy that's in the mix. Flashed to the Wyndham, solo 4th there against a solid field on the PGA Tour. So the distance off the tee is fantastic. Again, he sprays it, but you can play that here as long as he avoids the water on the holes that have water. He has been absolutely awesome on short par 4s, which again we have in spades here on all 3 courses. Yeah. And again, stroke game top 13 strokes gained putting in the past 36 rounds. So I'm surprised that he was available at 200 to 1 in the outright market. Very happy to click him down at 7,200 because I feel like there's just a lot of good stuff here. Now the putting stuff is a little bit interesting, but he's not been great inside some of the key buckets that you mentioned. But overall, he's been a pretty decent putter, a little bit better than field average around. So maybe a good lag putter. So I don't know. I think he's going to give himself a lot of birdie looks based off of what he's done so far on tour. So I'm happy to click 7,200 Ben Griffin, even if it's into relative ownership in this tier.
Yeah. I mean, and if we've done such a good job of avoiding chalk up top. I mean, a 3 or 4% difference between these guys at the bottom. Yeah. If you're skipping John Rahm, that's built in there immediately. So
good point.
And like we said, good putters are typically going to putt well, but bad putters are going to putt badly and well. That's why they're bad putters, is because they're inconsistent. Ben Griffin is exactly that. And at an event like this, if you're going to bank on his upside, if he has a good putting round, the rest of the game is right there, dude. So yeah, absolutely love it. Speaking of good putters, I do like a Brendan Todd at this course. I think he's kind of outside of the mold of what everyone's looking for. Played kind of nicely at the Sony, had one bad round. he was a hero for me getting into the top 40 on a Sunday. So that was nice from Brendan Todd. Robbie Shelton burnt a few people as well. I'm a big fan of Robbie Shelton from one of the Korn Ferry Tour graduates. He kind of didn't really show up too hot at the Sony either, but I'm definitely going to be going back to him in the 7s. 6Ks, we got some guys. I'm going to start off with one of my favorite players. I think he should be in the 7K range. He's had 16 top 20s and 12 top 10s, 12% of his starts with top 10s. Justin Lower, $6,800. He's going to be under owned too, around about 2-3%. Absolutely love him at $6,800. He grades out really well from any kind of approach metric that you're looking for inside of like 150 yards. And that's exactly that's where you're going to get all your birdie looks from, unless your name's John Rahm hitting it from like 175 to 5 feet. But I love Justin Lower, and I think he's going to play good golf. He kind of fizzled out towards the end of the season. He was rattling off top 20s, I think 3 out of the 4, and then he had a slow finish to the year. So hopefully he can bounce back with some energy this week. And then another guy I'm going to be playing is Stuart Sink. Completely risky as heck. Makes a bunch of birdies when he's firing up.
Yep.
Got a 300-1 outright on him. And he's won. He can win golf tournaments. He's shown us that when he's in contention, he can win a golf tournament. So T21 at the Sony, got a new caddy vibes. When he got Reagan on the bag, his son, won 2 tournaments. Now it's kind of that niche is worn off. Now he's got a new caddy on the bag, T21 at the Sony. What does he do this week? So kind of liking that vibe from him. And then a little bit of Lucas Glover action is also never too far from my clickability. Yeah. So who are you liking in the top of the 6? I know you said you're not too big of a fan of anyone in this range, but if you had to, who are you going to?
I agree. The one for me that makes the most sense, that I think fits and is popping in terms of some statistical crunching, it would be Justin Lower. The putting inside those key ranges is really nice. He's played these short par 4s really well, so he's going to give himself a ton of looks. Going to be able to be there in the par 5 scoring as well. Tee to green hasn't been great, but I think he can get himself around here without any problems if he had to go down there. Eric Van Rooyen, I want to really add some more guys that can withdraw at any time. Make just a team WD card with Justin Rose and Jason Day and EVR. I just think in terms of just overall profile and like ceiling, I think he's better than a lot of the guys that are down here.
Yeah,
we haven't seen a lot from him of late that would make you think that, but I just think the pedigree is better than some of the guys. And I think in terms of making decisions here, like I feel like there's one of two ways. I think going with maybe really short-term form, and that's harder to do in January because we just don't have it to lean on, or going as long with the longest view in the room and looking at what your baseline performance is historically. And I think that would probably lead you to an EVR versus some of the other guys in this range. So I think that they make a ton of sense. Those are kind of my favorite guys at the top. Again, I like so many guys at the 7s that we even briefly touched on. That I think just are better. I like both. Like at 7, just like you like Mark Harbert at 7. I think both Taylors, Nick and Ben Taylor at 7K, I think are of interest to me. You don't, haven't watched a lot of Ben Taylor, but he can putt it. He was in contention last week. Played par 4 scoring has been really good. Gives himself a lot of birdie looks too. We know that Nick Taylor can win on tour at times. The approach game gets really hot, and sometimes the putter does too. And those guys that just rather kind of hang out at 7. Like, Russell Knox can't putt, but Russell Knox can strike the hell out of it. And the putter gets even field average. Russell Knox will probably give himself a ton of looks. Right. So there's just a bunch of these guys that are, 7, 7-1, 7-2 that I would rather go to than dig past Justin Lower, who I do think is a good play. They'll probably be the bottom of the board for me, unless you can, convince me. I'm open to you talking me into someone else down here.
Some high volatility guys that are just popping from just strictly approach for me is going to be John Herr. Guys, electric with the irons, and he about broke the course record out in Accordia, shot like -9 out in the Zozo, and then finished like 54th after being just shoots like the course record and then finishes 54th in the 80-man field. So that's kind of the type of vibe you get from John Herr, right? Yeah. And it's very tough to do. So he ranks out very nicely. And then Satoshi Kodaira is another guy that I'm kind of in the mood to click a bit down in the $6,600 range. Yeah, he's also same, very accurate off the tee, and his irons are kind of good. The last 3 Japanese tour events he played, he was top 5 in all 3 of those. I don't know how many people start in those events or what the quality of the field is, but hey, he's not worse than 5th, so I'll take it. That's the last thing he's done. And then I'll mention Austin Cook. He's a kind of a staple that I mentioned down here, deep in the bottom of the barrel. He's one of these guys that doesn't have a lot of distance, but he's kind of accurate off the tee, which we've mentioned. You can kind of go with the bombers and you can go with the guys that are going to put themselves in perfect spots. And every time he showed up on the TV over the weekend at the Sony, he was just striping an iron at the flag. So on the par 3s, he can really get hot with the irons, and he's been one of these dudes low in the salary ranges that's been knocking on success and had a bad week last week. I think he's going to bounce back. So those are the guys I'm kind of eyeing out here. It's a sketchy range, like you said, and it's if you're brave enough to go into that department, it can really reward you, but also it can burn you most likely most of the time. So yeah, that's it for the whole range. Or you got anything else you want to, any other guys that we didn't touch on in the bottom of the 7s there? Or
just looking through this a little bit, I guess if I gave you another 6 guy, if you wanted to go with maybe a poor man's Taylor Montgomery, maybe that's Harry Hall.
Okay.
It's pretty rough approach wise, but has shown like he can putt the lights out of the ball. So he's going to give himself some looks here. The par 4 scoring has been really good. Par 5 scoring a lot. Again, these are, I think, it's almost double counting because part of it is because he's just such a damn good putter that he's probably scoring well on these these certain layouts. Yeah. The approach game has been pretty rough. Tee to green's been not great, but also good out of the sand, which I don't know how much to really weigh here, but bunkering is a piece of this place in terms of any sort of defense on the course from being super low. So that's kind of a guy that would be down there in the mid 6s. In the low 7s, one of my favorites I didn't mention is Callum Tarrant. It's been really good. Another guy that surprised me in terms of where he popped in my stuff in terms of overall ranking. But again, top 10 in approach over the last 36 rounds in this field. Top 20 in both, I think, 350 to 400 and 400 to 450 on par 5s. Tee to green's been really good. Is a really good putter. So I want to give a little bit of credence to that, where I think he's maybe only struggled on par 5s, which isn't going to do well here. You got to be able to make birdie and maybe take advantage of some eagle putts on the par 5s here. But Callum Tarrant in 7,200 in this range, I think makes a ton of sense. So he's a guy that I like, that short-term profile has been really, really encouraging.
Yeah, no, I think I've seen some stuff from him too, and I like what you see. He's also one of those hot and cold kind of guys, and when he plays good, man. So I'm looking forward to watching him play this week. I think he's also a solid player. What do you say, 6,800?
No, 72.
72, yeah, and which is same thing basically.
Yeah,
yeah. And then I see we've got a comment here on the live stream, and says Carl Jan season. And I don't have Carl Jan. I've got him as Yetchen Jan. This is the whole problem with these new guys.
I know.
I don't even know what his price is because I've got him as Yetchen and it didn't pull up. But he's a ball striking beast. It's hashtag team no putt. And if you're looking for that kind of a recipe on this course, Clint, I don't think you can go wrong pulling your trigger on Carl Jan, because he's looking at his 18 rounds he's played in 2023. The guy's 17th in the field of elite ball strikers. So let's go. This guy's going to ball strike the crap out of it. If the putter gets anywhere close to good, we're talking business, right? And let's go. So Carl Jan's I like him. I like him for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, I forget, maybe it was Zozo. I forget where it was in the swing season where I almost had a Ben Martin moment with him where I ran some stuff and I'm like, what in the world? Yeah. He's, really popping and profiling very well here. So it's a very, very volatile, just thinking offhand, it was a very volatile mix of finishing positions where he was miscut third, miscut second. It was almost every other week. But when he makes the cut, he literally is just in the top 10. So there's something there. Again, the quality of fields are different, but there's obviously an upside to the skill set of when it's clicking. He could be interesting. So yeah, I mean, at a spot like this where, I'm making the case that I think the below 7 really is kind of garbage at 6,900. I think that, there are worse plays. Again, I think Byron made a great point that I think is worth driving home, is that Saturday cut is definitely different here in terms of what you're losing by losing a guy on Saturday night. So the opportunity cost is not quite as high. So if he's going to come around and hang out for 3 rounds of birdies, it makes the bogeys a little bit more tolerable.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll see, like you said, it's boom or bust, and he's got 3 days to bust. So That's totally fine. Yeah, cool. Ryan, let's have a good week, man. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be tilting, having guys go off on courses that don't have anything but an iPhone camera on it for, visibility's sake. But I remember watching last year and it was just tough. So tough. We'll have to try and remember to channel our inner zen, chill out, just enjoy what is on the TV. And we are blessed with the PGA Tour coverage that they give us. So
absolutely. Yes. I do want to let folks know we're like,
yes, sorry,
man, hopefully 2 weeks away from a customizable splits tool that will, I think, be impactful in the space. And we're already, even though this one's not quite yet out for you in your hands, we're already working on upgraded versions of it. It is going to be outstanding. There's a very basic model currently on the site at Betsperts Golf, but this new one is going to be, I think, a game changer, and I'm really, really excited about it. A lot of work's gone in on the off season to get it to where it is. Got to play around with it a little bit on Monday, and it's going to be good. So we're a couple weeks away from that. If you're watching and listening now, we have a deal that expires before we tee off for the American Express. Betsperts Golf, $45 off of an annual subscription. I hit Siwoo last week, 45-1. So we're taking $45 off of that for you this week only, before Amex tees off at betspertsgolf.com. Again, every premium tool, all the articles, all the picks, the subscriber Discord, which I think is really where you can get access to, the things that Ron, Andy, and myself are playing in terms of bets. Adding some folks in there as well, which I'm excited about. So you can get some more picks. Just a good golf, like-minded community. You want to talk DFS, some stuff that Ron shares specifically in there in the Discord is really exciting. So betspertsgolf.com, you get $45 off before they tee off on Thursday morning.
It's a flash sale, folks. Go get your stuff now while it's hot. While stock lasts. So awesome stuff, Ryan. Thank you so much for joining me this week. It was fun chatting with you, and hopefully we can get Ron back soon. Ron, cheers to you, buddy. Get well. And it's going to be a fun week at the Amex, and can't wait to just tilt my face off. So till next week, folks. Chat to you later.